So this is a regular Monday morning at my Norwegian office in Oslo, and I asked my boss, who is actually from Namsos in Trøndelag, not far from here, how his weekend has been. And so his answer is, fantastic. I went climbing a glacier with my two best friends. Then one of them fell in a hole. It took us 4 hours to get him out. The weather was amazing. And what my boss is describing here is an extreme version of a Norwegian concept called friluftsliv. So it's a bit of a mouthful in English, so I've divided it into 3 for you. So fri means free in English, luft means air, and liv means life. So this word was first published by the famous playwright Henrik Ibsen in 1859, but it's actually been part of the Norwegian culture for over 5,000 years. So if you think about it, it's quite amazing that reconnecting with nature and having an outdoor lifestyle is still part of the Norwegian soul, despite this very modern lifestyle that Norwegians have today. So what is so special about friluftsliv? It's basically a philosophy of outdoor life, and it's about a simple life in nature without destroying or disturbing it. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the commercialization of friluftsliv, which has been done recently on social media, where you can see things like this. People lining up on top of Norwegian mountains to take pictures of themselves when they've actually not necessarily been hiking there. I have many examples. This is another one. And friluftsliv doesn't need to be as extreme as my boss going climbing glaciers. It can be something as simple as taking a Sunday hike with your family in the forest, or to going skiing with your friends on the weekend from cabin to cabin, or even going ice fishing with your grandfather. So in Norway, friluftsliv is literally everywhere. You have it, first of all, in the entertainment world, where Norwegians love to watch something called slow TV. One of the shows is, for example, watching birds hatching live on an island in northern Norway. Others feature the national friluftsliv hero Lars Monsen, and following his adventures all over the country. Parents also prefer to put their children in what they call friluftskindergartens, where children are outside 80% of the time. And what happens when it rains or snows, which is actually quite often in Norway? Well, they enjoy what I call bad weather in good clothing. And even in the political world, the Norwegian parliament has passed something called the friluftslaw, which includes allemannsrett, and that is in English the freedom to roam. And this allows anyone, whether you are a Norwegian or a foreigner, to come to Norway, pick mushrooms, pick berries, and even camp outdoors, even on private property. So why am I talking about friluftsliv today? Why not ask a Norwegian person? I mean, I'm French. While I was learning how to walk on the pavements in Paris, Norwegians were probably mastering their skiing techniques on some frozen lake in Norway. But that's exactly the point. I've moved here 9 years ago, and before that I lived in 9 different countries, among which Indonesia, the Philippines, Canada, the United Kingdom, and, for example, Denmark. And actually, I have analyzed and observed the Norwegian concepts, but also embraced many of them. And I could say now that friluftsliv is one of the reasons I decided to settle down in Norway. So I'm going to give you my take on why I think friluftsliv brings the best out of all of us in relationships, in the workplace, and also in society. So in relationships, very soon after coming to Norway, I became single, and I started going online on dating websites. And there, I didn't speak that much Norwegian, but I noticed one word everywhere, on every profile. You had to like friluftsliv to get a date with a Norwegian man. I heard from men that it's the same with women. So I started researching and realized, what friluftsliv was, and I felt like this was a lot of work for me to suddenly love being in nature. At that time, I was like a workaholic city girl. I didn't like the countryside. If I had a few days off, I would just go to another capital city on a weekend trip. And so all these profiles filled with, you know, a guy with a husky dog, with a tent, with a mountain, with a fjord, with a sunset, made me feel like I was a bit outside of this world and I didn't really have a chance. But a friend of mine called Mia, once I saw her and she was wearing very laid-back clothing, running pants and hiking shoes and no makeup on, and I asked her where she was going, and she said, yeah, I'm going on a date with Espen. We're going hiking in the woods, and it's going to be very low-key, and I don't need to be anyone else than myself. So I realized that friluftsliv can actually bring the best out of you, at least in this dating and relationship period, where you can just be your simple self. And after that, I also concluded, after seeing a lot of these interactions, that Norwegians don't look only for someone who is physically attractive. They also look for someone who is active, reliable, and resilient. And actually liking friluftsliv is making sure that you are those three things. Because in the end, you don't want to know whether this guy or this girl can be cute and charming in a restaurant. You want to know how the person will be when you have been hiking for 6 days in the snow, you got lost, you need to find a place for your tent, or you need to know how this person is going to react if you are 5 days in the tent, locked in there with no access to toilet or a proper bathroom, it's been raining all the time. And so, to show you how far I've come in this integration process with friluftsliv, I'm going to show you two pictures. The first one is me on a dating profile. This is for a non-Norwegian manly audience. And looking all nice and fresh in this dress. And this is the second one. For a Norwegian audience. I'm setting up a fishing net with a lot of wool on my body. So now I'm going to talk about how friluftsliv impacts us in our work life in Norway. So in my first weeks of working in Norway, I wanted to show how committed I was to my job. And to do so, I was staying quite late every evening. One day, my CEO sees me there around 6 or 7 p.m. and tells me, what are you doing here? The weather is amazing, it just snowed. You need to leave and have a personal life. You need to leave this office right now. And this was completely amazing to me because my boss was actually telling me to stop working and leave the office. And I think with retrospective that he knew something I didn't, and it is that if you have employees which have a personal life, and especially a life outdoors of the grid, they make much healthier but also less stressed employees. So this is, for example, a picture of us on a team building exercise, a whole day going skiing. And it doesn't just stop with management in Norway, it can also be with colleagues who, if they see me on a Friday at 1 p.m. with skis on my shoulder, going on a long weekend, I would not get passive-aggressive comments. Oh, well, great that you're having a great time. We're staying here to work, and that sort of thing. They would actually encourage me and ask me where I'm going, and on the Monday they would ask me how the snow was and which wax I used, etc., etc. So I think that to conclude on the work-life balance, it is quite special in Norway that we are able to have as much focus and as much value from our employers, at least many of them, which see that it is as important to be outdoors and off the grid than to be on a Monday morning effective at 9 a.m. So the last element, how can friluftsliv bring the best out of you in society, out of individuals and out of society? The Norwegian society is a very strong catalyst for friluftsliv, and people are invited to donate either with time or money. Norway is covered with cabins, or hytte, as locally called. This is just one of them. There are many more, privately owned or owned by something called the Norwegian Trekking Association, or in Norwegian called DNT. And the DNT has over 500 cabins all over Norway. And this system and this network is reliable on two things to function. That is trust and volunteer work. So only in 2015, there were 600,000 hours of volunteer work put into maintaining this system by painting cabins, painting forest trails, and doing anything needed for people actually to enjoy the outdoors. And the other element is that when you sleep there, you're expected, in many of these cases, to report yourself how many nights you've stayed there and how much food you've taken from the cupboards, because nobody is there to count that. And you're supposed to give your personal number so that they can send you the bill. So this is already quite a challenge for us foreigners to understand, because that would never happen, I mean, in other countries. But the even more surprising element is that Norwegians have, after paying and all this, they also clean the cabin from top to bottom to leave it pristine for the next person coming. And in the beginning, I was thinking, we've just paid to stay there. This is like a hotel. Why would we have to clean this place? But then if you think of all the hours people put into this as volunteers, if you think of all the trust it's based on, if you think that it's actually quite cheap to stay in these cabins and that it gives you access to an amazing outdoor experience, cleaning these cabins from top to bottom is actually just giving back to the community. So in this kind of society where trust and volunteer work are the basics of society in Norway, and where individuals who are actually healthier and less stressed because they're spending all this time outdoors, it makes societies which are very good models and which are very good to thrive in. So to conclude, I'm going to show you another cabin. Oh, actually, this is a fisherman's house, I've been told. So to conclude, what can you do to kind of bring friluftsliv into your life, or at least feel the benefits of it? You might think that where I live, there aren't these kind of fjords or nature accessible as easy as in Norway. You might think that your boss would never be happy and give you a high five for leaving at 1 p.m. on a Friday to go skiing. But you might want to change things. You know, you could, as a boss, for example, give your employees more time to be outdoors. As a colleague, encourage your fellow colleagues to actually take time off and encourage them to be with their families. And in the end, friluftsliv doesn't require that much money. Mountain hiking shoes and a water bottle are often way enough to be in nature. And so I would encourage everyone to be in nature before work, after work, with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues. And the world does not need more tablets and more computers. It just needs more people painting cabins, painting forest trails, and involved in friluftsliv. Thank you.